Hey everybody, don't mind me. I'm just looking for games that are other than D&D, and according to this document that I got off of some random person, Don't Ask Questions, they supposedly exist. Dungeons & Dragons is the de facto game for so many people, mainly because it is the most recognizable and well-known. Now with the movie released, it is going to become even more popular, but it's far from the only one out there. And if I was to name every single RPG that existed out there, we would honestly be here all day. So rather, what I'm going to do is go over the basics of how just to get into the hobby to begin with, and then give some suggestions based upon genre as well as overall difficulty. First things first, picking up a new game. Luckily with how online everything is today, there is a chance you could just do a quick Google search, or dare to ask the question online. This is usually how I see if I'm going to like a game to begin with. Through this method, you are able to read reviews and other people's general opinions on the game. Sometimes by doing this, you can even find things like fandom wikis that will give you basic information on how the game functions with its mechanics to see if it even sparks any type of interest. But above all, the thing I like to do the most is go to used bookstores. Believe it or not, you will find a TTRPG here from all eras of the hobby. More often than not, by going to a used bookstore or a used section of a game store, you'll stumble across an RPG that you've never heard of before, and one that could potentially catch your eye. On top of all that, they're probably sold at a reasonable price. It's actually through this method how I was able to gain games like Fantasy Age and also this module for the Middle-earth role-playing game. I'll probably never play this module, but honestly just owning it is cool in its own right. But the one that haunts me to this day is the Wheel of Time RPG. I saw this years ago for a very reasonable price of $20. However, at the time, money was extremely tight, and I couldn't justify buying it. Mainly because I didn't think my friends would play it, which was usually a qualifying factor. And now, to this day, this is sincerely my biggest regret for never picking up. Even though my friends and I probably would never have played it, we did play Pathfinder 1st edition at the time, which used the 3.5 like the Wheel of Time RPG did. So at the very least, I could have potentially taken some concepts or anything and then potentially converted it over to the Pathfinder game to enhance it in some capacity. But that's also the risk you take in doing this. But then comes the factor of, how do you know if you should try it? In those instances, just go with your gut. If you think you're going to enjoy it, then honestly just give it a shot. You really can't know if you're going to like something until you give it a try, because what sounds good on paper may not function well in practice. That being said, I'm still going to give some recommendations. First up is... Now, there are dozens of games based on licensed properties. You'll find a Star Trek one, Star Wars role-playing, Dune, Alien, and Warhammer 40k. However, if you're looking for more generic, then I highly recommend Starfinder. It's done by Paizo, the same company that makes Pathfinder, a fantastic RPG that is on the number crunch side, but really leans into the space opera side of things. You can also find it free on Archives of Nethys. Another one is Veil the Void. This one is special because it's done by an extremely small team, fairly affordable, and just came out with a recent weapon expansion. You can feel the love in this game, and while things can be overpowered, the fact that it was done by one person is honestly amazing. First suggestion is Monster of the Week. The game is fairly straightforward, using what's known as the Powered by the Apocalypse system to create a game that is inspired by the Monster of the Week shows like Scooby-Doo or Supernatural, where you can have an overarching story but focus on monster hunting more than anything. You then have games like World of Darkness line that tend to be more focused on narrative, roleplay, and political intrigue, where you play as the monsters. Most famously is Vampire the Masquerade, where you play as every goth's dream and become the vampire that you know you are. Which brings me to probably my favorite, Call of Cthulhu. I love this game and have lost so many characters to it. You are a group of investigators looking into the goings-on and cult-like activity, hoping to prevent them from bringing their eldritch god into this world. Your characters are paper thin in this thing. If you get into combat, you are screwed and probably going to die. Odds on favor is, unless you're Old Man Henderson, you're going to lose at least one character either to insanity or get an axe to the chest. That actually happened to me. My investigator was stuck beneath a pile of wood and a fire was starting, so another investigator was trying to set me free. But he failed his check and wound up sending an axe into my chest. It was a lot of fun. Now, as mentioned, if I was to name every RPG out there, we would be here all day, and even then, I'd probably still miss a few. I haven't even touched on games like Deadlands, Delta Green, or dozens of other licensed properties. So it's one of those things of, if I didn't mention an RPG that you personally enjoy, give it a shout out down below. You're more than welcome to do so. But hopefully, this will give you some inspiration to try out some games that are not D&D, to potentially find one that will best fit your story or the game you're trying to go for. Or, potentially have lingering regret. What?